a city which ever since the end of World War II has never been long out of the world's headlines. For more than 15 years, Berlin has found itself involved in crisis after crisis. No other city in the world has been assailed so persistently in the Cold War. And today it stands as a symbol in the struggle between East and West. West Berlin, with its 2.25 million people, has been called a miracle of hard work, a thriving metropolis of imaginative new buildings, modern stores and wide roads, created by the West out of the rubble of war. On the surface, life runs smoothly. There's time to relax, for the children to play, for a doze in the sun, for dancing at tea time. And when darkness falls on the Kurfürstendamm, one of Europe's most glamorous shopping streets, there's a gay nightlife for the tourist. This is the city of Willy Brandt, for years the cool, tough governing mayor of West Berlin, to whom crisis is commonplace. For West Berlin is an island in a sea of troubles. Around its 90 miles of border, British military police, as well as American and French troops, keep ceaseless watch on the patrols of the East. At checkpoints on the 3 motor roads which run out of the city across the Soviet zone to West Germany, the 3 powers work together and traffic flows freely. After the war, Berlin had been divided into 4 sectors. Specified routes into the city by land, water and air were agreed. Freedom of access was guaranteed by Britain, America, France and Russia. But when the Russians arbitrarily set up a communist government in East Berlin, the city was divided. If it had happened in London, this is what it would have looked like. Bus routes would have stopped at the border. Where West Berlin joins the Soviet zone of Germany, the border takes no account of jobs, homes or families. Here in the British sector, it runs down the middle of this street. On the right is West Berlin. The grass-grown roadway on the left is in the Soviet zone, and the British patrols must not cross the middle of the road. People living in the houses on the right look across the road to their neighbors, and that's all they can do. They can't visit them, they can't telephone them, for the houses on the east side are fenced in with wire, and the phones to the west are cut off. And when the road turns to go into the Soviet zone, it is blocked, like this. Behind their wire, the East German police, armed with Tommy guns, keep guard, looking out from watchtowers, hiding in bushes, reporting every movement. Even the lakes where West Berliners go sailing at weekends are divided. The border runs right through them, and West Berlin police and customs officers patrol in their high-speed launches. They take nothing for granted. Even a fisherman's papers are checked. Across these lakes, desperate people have swum to freedom, a freedom symbolized over the years for nearly 4 million refugees by the Brandenburg Gate, Berlin's most famous landmark. Some of the refugees came this way to the west in the days before the border was rigidly controlled, leaving their homes and possessions in East Berlin, where the ruins still stand as a reminder of war, side by side with flats on the Moscow pattern. Each threat of a crisis in Berlin has swollen the flood of refugees. Many came by underground, on the excuse of going to work or visiting friends, which meant they daren't carry much telltale luggage. But as the train emerged into the light of West Berlin, they were thankful they had found sanctuary. From economic or political conditions they could no longer tolerate. More refugees came on the overhead railway which circles Berlin, direct to the station which adjoins West Berlin's biggest refugee camp at Marienfelde. Here, as Berlin's biggest crisis was developing in the late summer of 1961, men, women and children were arriving each day. For day after day, year after year, people from the Soviet zone of Germany, half of them under the age of 25, had come through East Berlin to find a new life in the West. They were only too glad to wait their turn for medical inspection. Since the closing of the border with East Berlin, the number of refugees has dwindled, but some still get through, and the procedure is the same. Every refugee is examined by a screening committee. Its 3 members were themselves refugees. They have first-hand knowledge of conditions over the border. Decisions are made by vote, but no refugee is ever sent back. This man, with his stepdaughter, said he'd come to the West because he'd been asked to make regular reports to the party on what his fellow workers were saying and doing. The only safe route for refugees out of West Berlin is by air. And when all the formalities are completed, they queue again for the last stage of their journey to Tempelhof Airport, past the memorial to the men who died operating the Allied airlift, which defeated the Russian blockade of the city in 1948. Now, it is only about an hour's flight over the Soviet zone to West Germany, to new homes and new jobs. Until they find them, they'll live in camps with board and lodging paid for by the government. While the Brandenburg Gate was a symbol of freedom for those who wanted to get out, it represented an escape hatch to the East German authorities who wanted to keep them in. Without warning, and in violation of the four-power agreement to maintain free circulation between East and West Berlin, East German troops and police closed the border to stop the flow of refugees. Armored cars were brought up under cover of night to block the Brandenburg Gate. Barbed wire fences were rushed up. East German police were heavily reinforced. But all this was only a start. Within a few days, walls of cement blocks were being built across every street leading from East to West Berlin. Soon the whole of East Berlin was shut in behind the wall. It ran along the British sector, the American sector, the French sector. It was the latest version of the Iron Curtain. Only at times of acute crisis have military uniforms been seen in the streets of West Berlin. But the British, American and French troops live in constant readiness, though Berliners do not see the exercises which in the British sector take place in the heart of the Berlin forest. Here, United States helicopters cooperate with British infantry and tanks in mock battles to keep men and machines at the peak of fitness. The American troops do some street clearing exercises in a mocked-up village built near the Soviet zone border. And with them come the American tanks. Soon after Berlin's biggest crisis flared up, they were joined by 1,500 more United States soldiers ordered by President Kennedy to reinforce the defenses of West Berlin. Over the border, the East German patrols were stepped up. But though this was the biggest crisis, the question was the same. Could guarantees given by the West be whittled away by threats of force from the East? Whatever the ultimate fate of Berlin might be, one thing was certain. Until a just solution could be found, there would always be the church on one side of a divided street, walled up against those who worshipped in it, and the face behind the wire.